When asked if Americans can ultimately defeat the deep state, Flynn said he addresses some of it in the film, but added, quote, "I think in the arc, I'm a student of world and U.S. history, for those in your audience. I think in the arc of history, the good guys win." I'm not sure that's true. I don't think it's true that the good guys always win in the end. So I want to politely and humbly push back on that, and I'll explain why I don't think it's true, and then I think why it's important to not believe that. That's my goal here. It's a very similar line. Barack Obama would use it all the time. He would say, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice." No, it doesn't. At least not like these people mean it. Not in the political sense. Like anytime Obama ever mentioned it, it was always like, don't ask, don't tell. It was like we're repealing don't ask, don't tell, or we're going to pass an abortion law. In the moral arc of the universe, it bends towards justice. It's like, that's not what so that line that Obama uses, it comes from Martin Luther King Jr. He used it a lot, but in particular, one speech at the National Cathedral in 1968. I heard that this is the last sermon he ever gave. And at the end of the sermon, he said, "We shall overcome, because the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice." The next line, he says, "We shall overcome, because James Russell Lowell is right. As we were singing earlier today, truth forever on the scaffold, wrong forever on the throne. Yet that scaffold sways the future, and behind the dim unknown stands God within the shadow, keeping watch above his own." So that poem, it's James Russell Lowell. He wrote it in 1845 against slavery, and the abolitionists obviously took it over. They took it rightfully, and it's a beautiful poem. It's called what's it called? The Crisis, I think it's called. Let me look it up here. The Present Crisis. It's called The Present Crisis. Very, very good. James Russell Lowell. Actually, in Trump's second impeachment, in the beginning of the impeachment, the chaplain of the Senate quoted part of this poem in his opening prayer. How about that? As a bit of a dig against the president. He quoted this part. He said, "Once to every man and nation comes the moment to decide, in the strife of truth with falsehood, for the good or evil side. Some great cause, God's new Messiah, offering each the bloom or blight, parts the goats upon the left hand and the sheep upon the right. And the choice goes by forever twixt that darkness and that light." They use that for Trump's impeachment. Anywho, that line that Martin Luther King Jr. quotes, it's about Jesus and the second coming. That's why Martin Luther King Jr., he ends the sermon with, "Thank God for John, who centuries ago, out of that lonely, obscure island called Patmos, caught vision of a new Jerusalem descending out of heaven from God, who heard a voice saying, 'Behold, I make all things new, former things are passed away.'" So yes, in the religious Christian sense, Jesus will come back and make all things new. In the sense of Revelation 21, then yes, the moral arc of the universe bends towards justice when Jesus comes back again. But that's not what Barack is talking about. That's not what the Democrats are talking about when they say, "Oh, we're going to pass this new bill and life's going to be amazing because the universe bends towards justice," or whatever. Like, no, it doesn't. The universe does not bend towards justice. The universe bends towards chaos and anarchy. If you go back to the beginning of Martin Luther King Jr.'s sermon, are you with me on following this so far? So the moral arc of the universe, Obama used it all the time because MLK used it all the time. In that sermon where MLK used it, in the very beginning of that same sermon, MLK talked about Rip Van Winkle. You know the story Rip Van Winkle? I love reading all the fairy tales and the Disney movies that we know today. If you go back and you read the original ones, they're so much better. I'm reading Peter Pan now. Peter Pan is such an awesome story, and Disney ruined all these fairy tales. But anyway, Rip Van Winkle is one of those stories too that everyone knows Rip Van Winkle, but who's ever read Rip Van Winkle? So a couple things. How long do you think Rip Van Winkle was asleep? Before I read it, it's like, I don't know, he's supposed to sleep for like 1,000 years or something. I don't know, 200 years? All I know is he wakes up with a giant long beard to the floor. Every cartoon picture I've ever seen of him, he's got this huge white beard. He was only asleep for 20 years. So it wasn't that long. And he fell asleep, and the American Revolution happened. Did you know that? I never knew. Anytime I read a story about it, it leaves out the American Revolution part, but that's the original story. He slept during the American Revolution. He went up for a little nap in the Catskills, and King George was the king. And then he came down, and George Washington was the man. He's like, what the heck just happened? But MLK said he slept through a revolution. While he was peacefully snoring up in the mountain, a revolution was taking place that at points would change the course of history, and Rip knew nothing about it. He was asleep. He slept through a revolution. And one of the great liabilities of life is that all too many people find themselves living amid a great period of social change, and yet they fail to develop the new attitudes, the new mental responses, and the new situation demands. They end up sleeping through a revolution. And I fear that there's too many people today sleeping through the revolution. And let me just jump to the point, then I'll come back. That's why I think it's very dangerous to say, well, the moral arc of the universe bends towards justice, or don't worry about it. In the end, the good guys always win. Because I think it's a balm. It's like an Ambien. It's like, well, you don't have to worry about it because the good guys always win. You with me? Go back to sleep. Don't get engaged. Don't wake up. No. Go back to your nap. Go back to your nap. It's fine. The good guys always win. The good guys win in the end. The moral arc of the universe. You don't have to do anything, and the moral arc of the universe, it just bends that way naturally. It's like, no, it doesn't. And this is one of the big problems with our political culture today is that I think I blame TV. I think I blame all the TV shows like House of Cards and all those other political TV shows. It's really confused people. It's blurred the lines between what's real and what's fake. And I think a lot of people go through life now watching politics like it's a TV show. Like, I wonder what's going to happen next. What's going to happen this season of the election, or whatever. And it's like, no, like it's not a TV show. This is not a TV show. Like this is real life. And not only is this real life, you're in it. Like House of Cards or whatever. I don't know what's like another like Veep or I never watch these shows, but like that's fake. It looks real, but it's not real. Filming's over. It's over. It's done. This, very real, and you're in it. There are no writers. There are no extras. There's no film crew. For a set, you with me? You're the one. You're in the show. This is your show. It's called life. It's our country. And I think people got to like wake up. You don't. You get it. You're listening to this show right now. Most people need to wake up because there is no guarantee until Jesus comes back that there will be any semblance of peace or justice at all. And we talked about this in the first hour of the show. We talked about how the natural state of mankind is disorder. We did spend the first hour of the show talking about order or chaos. Chaos was the theme there. Chaos versus order. That's the natural state. The natural state of everything is chaos. There's no guarantee the good guys win. What do you like? The more I read about World War II, the more anyone reads about World War II, I don't know how you could possibly come to any other conclusion when you read about World War II, is how impossible it was that the good guys won. Impossible. I talked to one, I'll never forget, I'm sure I told the story. I talked to the guy who, one of the Army Rangers who was at Point du Hoc. So Point du Hoc, this massive cliff that these guys had to climb before D-Day to knock out the guns that would have just bombarded our guys, and we would have no prayer. D-Day itself is ridiculous. There's no way D-Day could have ever happened. But if these guys didn't storm the cliffs or climb the cliffs of Point du Hoc, then there's no way. And everything went wrong on Point du Hoc. Everything went wrong. And I talked to the guy who was there, who did it, and I said, have you ever been back? And he said, yeah, I went back a couple years back, and I walked to the edge of the cliff, and I put my toes over the edge, and I looked down, and I said, there's no way we did that. That's the guy who did it. The guy who did it said, there's no way we did that. There's no, like, It's an absolute miracle that the good guys won World War II. But we couldn't just sit back and be like, wow, the good guys will win. If you start thinking like that, then you're just you will sit back. Like, it'll all work itself out. Like, no, it will not. It will not just work itself out. That's not how things work. In fact, I guarantee you, if you sit back, it will not work out. I guarantee you, if you sit back on our country, it will not work out, just like those dishes in the sink will not wash themselves. And I'm reminded of that funny comedy bit where the guy tells his wife about this secret table or the magic table that if you just put a dirty dish on the table, you wake up in the morning, it's magically cleaned. He's telling his wife about this. And anyway, in real life, the dishes won't get clean. You with me? On their own. And our country won't be saved on its own because the good guys win. No.